The lawyer's office smelled like old books and expensive cologne. I sat between my parents, Michael and Carol, watching them smile like they'd already won the lottery. My sister Clara kept checking her phone, probably calculating how she'd spend her share. Uncle George had been gone for 3 weeks, and now we were here for the reading of his will. The lawyer cleared his throat and began reading. Everything seemed normal until he reached the final paragraph. My inheritance, the largest portion, actually, came with a condition. I had to be married within 5 years, or everything would go to Clara instead. The room went silent. My parents' smiles froze. Clara looked up from her phone, eyes wide. Then she started laughing. My stomach dropped as the reality hit me. Uncle George had always been traditional, but this? This felt like a cruel joke. I looked at my parents, expecting them to protest, to say this wasn't fair. Instead, Michael nodded slowly, like this made perfect sense. Carol patted my hand and said, "Well, I guess you'd better start looking for a husband, sweetheart." That Sunday, we had our usual family dinner at my parents' house. I'd barely touched my food when Clara decided to twist the knife. "So, Anna," she said loudly, making sure everyone could hear. "How's the husband hunt going? You've only got 5 years before I get your money." She laughed, stabbing her fork into her roasted chicken. Her husband, Marcus, chuckled beside her. I felt my face burn. "Clara, that's not funny," I muttered. But she wasn't done. "I'm just saying, tick-tock, you sad spinster. Maybe you should lower your standards. I mean, beggars can't be choosers, right?" Carol laughed from across the table. Actually laughed. "Clara, be nice to your sister," she said, but her tone was playful. "We just want Anna to be happy. And settled. Like you." Michael nodded in agreement, cutting his steak. "Your mother's right. Marriage is important. It's about stability, responsibility." I pushed my chair back, mumbling something about needing air. Nobody followed me. I stood on their back porch, hands shaking. That's when I realized something cold and clear: they didn't care about my happiness. They cared about that money, and they'd already decided Clara deserved it more. 2 nights later, I couldn't sleep. The conversation kept replaying in my head: Clara's mocking voice, my mother's laughter. Around midnight, I made a decision. I needed to know what they were really thinking, really planning. My parents had given me a spare key to their house years ago for emergencies. I used it now. The house was dark and silent as I crept inside. My father's home office was downstairs, tucked away in the back corner. I closed the door softly and turned on the desk lamp. The filing cabinet wasn't even locked. I found it in the 3rd drawer down, a thick folder labeled Retirement Plans. Inside were glossy brochures for a luxury retirement community called the Golden Fields. But it wasn't just brochures. There were floor plans. Detailed, marked-up floor plans of a specific house, the corner lot, the biggest one in the development. Notes in my father's handwriting covered the margins: master suite overlooks lake, perfect for entertaining, down payment from George's estate. My hands trembled as I took photos with my phone. They'd been planning this for months, maybe years. They were going to use my inheritance to fund their dream retirement. Every single dollar. 3 days later, Michael called me. His voice was sweeter than I'd heard in years. "Anna, sweetheart, your mother and I have been thinking," he started. "We know someone who might be perfect for you. Timothy Henderson, my business partner. He's very successful, very stable. Maybe you two could grab dinner?" I knew Timothy. He was 53, balding, and spent every conversation talking about tax law. He was also recently divorced and desperate. "Dad, I don't know, just one dinner, Anna. For us? We want to help you meet this deadline. We want you to be happy." There it was again. That word. Happy. Translated, married and profitable. I took a deep breath, thinking about those floor plans hidden in their office. Sure, Dad, I said, forcing brightness into my voice. That sounds great. Set it up. He sounded relieved. Wonderful. I'll text you the details. Timothy's a good man, Anna. Very good man. After we hung up, I stared at my phone. They weren't trying to help me. They were trying to secure their investment. I was nothing more than a signature on a check, a means to an end. Fine. If they wanted to play games, I could play too. But I'd be playing to win. The restaurant was too fancy for a first date. Timothy talked for 45 minutes straight about municipal bonds and depreciation schedules. I nodded at the right moments, smiled when expected, and excused myself to the restroom. In the bathroom stall, I pulled out my phone and searched for estate lawyers in the city. I'd been thinking about this ever since that phone call with my father. The marriage clause felt wrong, manipulative. But more than that, I realized something. I didn't need their inheritance. I didn't need to play by their rules. I found a lawyer with good reviews and sent an inquiry email right there from the bathroom. When I returned to the table, Timothy was still talking. I interrupted him gently. Timothy, you seem like a nice person, but I don't think this is going to work. He looked confused but not hurt. Honestly, I don't think he'd even noticed I'd been gone for 10 minutes. I paid for my half of the meal and left. Standing in the parking lot, I made a vow to myself. A fierce, burning promise that felt like fire in my chest. They were going to regret this. Every single one of them. I wasn't going to be their puppet, and I definitely wasn't going to fund their retirement. Somehow, some way, I was going to make them pay. If you're cheering for this kind of ruthless justice, you haven't seen anything yet. Hit that subscribe button now because this is just the beginning, and trust me, you need to witness the final blow. I'd been sitting on a small investment opportunity for months. My college roommate, Jane, had started a tech company that created software for small businesses. She needed investors, and I'd been too scared to risk my savings. Not anymore. The next morning, I called Jane and told her I was in. I had a small savings bond my grandmother had given me years ago, money I'd been saving for my own wedding someday. The irony wasn't lost on me. I cashed it out and transferred $15,000 to Jane's company. It was terrifying. That was most of my liquid savings, gone in a single wire transfer. But as I watched the confirmation screen, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks: power. My parents had made me feel worthless, like my only value was in getting married and securing their money. But I was smart. I was capable. And I was going to prove that I didn't need their inheritance or their approval. I started working nights and weekends, helping Jane however I could. Marketing, customer outreach, anything to make this investment pay off. My parents kept texting me about Timothy, asking about a second date. I kept making excuses. They had no idea what I was really doing. 6 weeks after I'd invested in Jane's company, Clara showed up at my apartment unannounced. I opened the door to find her standing there, arms crossed, looking annoyed. "We need to talk," she said, pushing past me into my living room. "I'm remodeling my kitchen. The contractor wants $5,000 up front, and Marcus's bonus didn't come through." She sat on my couch like she owned it. "So I need you to loan me $5,000. It's basically my money anyway, right? Once you fail to get married, I get Uncle George's estate. Consider it in advance." I stared at her. "No." Her head snapped up. "Excuse me?" I said no. "I'm not giving you $5,000. Clara's face turned red. "Are you serious right now? You're going to be selfish like this? I'm your sister. And you called me a sad spinster in front of our entire family," I shot back. "You've been counting down the days until you get my inheritance. Why would I help you?" She stood up, grabbing her purse. "Fine. Be that way. But don't come crying to me when you're alone and broke." She stormed out. 2 hours later, I saw her Facebook post, some people are so selfish they won't even help family in need. Money really does show people's true colors. 23 people liked it, including our mother. 3 days after Clara's visit, I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, "About your uncle's will." My finger hovered over the delete button. It could be spam, or worse. But something made me open it. "Dear Anna, you don't know me, but I used to work as an accountant for your uncle's estate lawyer. I left the firm recently, and there's something you should know. The marriage clause in your inheritance wasn't your uncle's original intention. 3 months before his death, your father, Michael, met privately with the lawyer and insisted that clause be added. He said it was for your own good, and that your uncle agreed in principle, but I saw the original will. There was no such condition. I felt you deserved to know the truth. I'm sorry for your loss." The email was unsigned. I read it 7 times, my hands shaking harder with each pass. My father had manipulated Uncle George's will. He'd engineered this entire situation, probably while Uncle George was sick and vulnerable. All so he could control my life and secure funding for his retirement fantasy. I forwarded the email to my personal archive and then to the estate lawyer I'd contacted. This was evidence, even if it was anonymous. But more than that, it was confirmation. My family wasn't just greedy. They were actively working against me. Jane called me on a Tuesday morning, screaming so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "We got it. Anna, we got the contract." Her tech company had landed its first major client, a regional healthcare network that needed her software for 25 locations. The contract was worth $300,000 over 2 years. My $15,000 investment was about to start paying off. The profit margin on this is incredible, Jane told me over celebratory coffee that afternoon. After expenses and development costs, investors should see returns within 6 months. You, specifically, are looking at about $30,000 back in the first year. I tried to play it cool, but inside I was screaming. $30,000. That was more money than I'd ever had at once. It wasn't inheritance money, it was money I'd earned through smart decisions and hard work. That night, I bought a cheap bottle of champagne and drank it alone in my apartment. No family, no celebration dinner, no one to share it with. But I didn't care. This victory was mine and mine alone. I looked at the photo I'd taken of my parents' retirement plans, still saved on my phone. The golden fields. That corner lot house. An idea was forming, crazy and impossible. But maybe, just maybe, it wasn't impossible after all. The Golden Fields was about 40 minutes outside the city, nestled in the kind of scenic area where rich people went to pretend they were living simple lives. I drove there on a Saturday afternoon, wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap. The security guard at the gate barely looked at me when I said I was visiting a friend. The development was beautiful, I had to admit. Perfectly manicured lawns, elegant houses designed to look like countryside cottages but with all the modern luxuries. I found the corner lot house easily. It was exactly where the floor plans had indicated. And right there, planted in the front yard, was a "For Sale" sign. My heart nearly stopped. I pulled over and took a dozen photos from different angles. The sign listed a real estate agency and a price, $750,000. It was astronomical, way beyond anything I could afford. But Jane's company was growing. My investment was paying off. And I had Uncle George's inheritance still waiting, marriage clause or not. I sat in my car, staring at that house, imagining my parents' faces if they ever found out. It was crazy. It was impossible. But as I drove away, I was already running the numbers in my head, figuring out how to make the impossible happen. They wanted that house. So did I. And I was going to get it first. I found a lawyer in the city who specialized in real estate and privacy. Her name was Rachel Kim, and she didn't ask questions when I explained what I wanted, an LLC with an anonymous structure that couldn't be easily traced back to me. "You want a shell company," she said simply. "Legal, common, and very effective for private property purchases. It'll cost about $1,500 to set up properly. I paid her that day. 2 weeks later, I had the papers. The LLC was called Thornhill Properties, generic enough to mean nothing to anyone. I contacted a real estate agent in Golden Fields, someone who didn't know my parents and had no connection to our town. Her name was Patricia. I represent a client interested in the corner lot property, I told her over the phone. We'd like to make an offer, but my client values extreme privacy. All communications must go through me, and the sale must be handled discreetly. Patricia was professional. I understand completely. We work with private buyers all the time. What kind of offer is your client considering? I'd done the math 1,000 times. With Jane's company profit projections and a mortgage I could barely afford, I could make it work. Barely. $700,000. Cash offer, quick closing. There was a pause. Let me get back to you within 48 hours. She called back in 24. The sellers accept. Congratulations. While I was secretly arranging the biggest purchase of my life, my parents were making their own plans. Michael called to tell me they'd booked a 7-day Caribbean cruise, leaving in 2 weeks. We've been working so hard, Carol gushed in the background. We deserve a vacation. The cruise cost $8,000. I knew this because my mother posted about it constantly on Facebook, tagging every photo with hashtags like #LivingOurBestLife and #RetirementDreaming. What they didn't mention, but what I calculated from their posts, was that they were spending money they didn't have yet. My father had taken out a loan against his expected inheritance. The inheritance that depended on me getting married. The inheritance that might not come for 5 more years. They were gambling with money they didn't actually possess, living like they'd already won. Clara commented on every post with heart emojis and, "You deserve it." Meanwhile, her own Facebook feed was full of her kitchen renovation, which she'd somehow funded despite claiming she needed my $5,000. I watched all of this from behind my screen, saying nothing, liking nothing. They had no idea that I'd just signed preliminary paperwork to buy their dream house. The closing date was set for 6 weeks away. I just had to keep quiet and keep them unsuspecting until then. The mortgage office was in a bland building downtown. I sat across from a loan officer named Mr. Patterson, my hands sweating as he reviewed my financial documents. Jane's company contracts, my employment history, my credit score. Everything. "This is a significant mortgage for your income level," he said carefully. "It's doable, but you'll be stretched thin for the first few years." "I understand," I said. "I'm prepared for that." He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. "All right. Let's proceed." The closing took 3 hours. I signed document after document until my hand cramped. When Patricia handed me the final deed, I had to read it 3 times before it felt real. Thornhill Properties LLC, owner, Golden Fields Corner Lot, 1247 Meadowbrook Lane. I held the paper in my hands, feeling its weight. This was it. I owned my parents' dream retirement home. They had no idea. Nobody knew except my lawyer, the real estate agent, and me. As I walked out of the office, deed tucked safely in my bag, I felt something I hadn't felt in months, pure, absolute triumph. Let them go on their cruise. Let them post their photos and dream their dreams. I held the key to those dreams in my hands, and when the time came, I would decide their fate. 2 weeks after I closed on the house, Clara called me sobbing. Marcus lost his job, she gasped out between tears. His entire department got laid off. We're completely screwed, Anna. We have the new kitchen payments, the car loans, and now no income. I listened silently, waiting for what I knew was coming. I need help. I know I was mean about the inheritance thing, but I'm desperate. Can you loan us $20,000? Just until Marcus finds something new? $20,000. The audacity was almost impressive. Clara, I can't do that. What do you mean you can't? You're just sitting on your inheritance, No, I'm not, I interrupted. The inheritance isn't mine unless I get married, remember? And I'm not married. All my money is tied up in long-term investments. I'm actually pretty tight financially right now. It wasn't entirely a lie. The mortgage on the Golden Fields house was bleeding me dry. You're lying, she hissed. You just don't want to help me. Believe what you want, Clara. But I don't have $20,000 to give you. She hung up without saying goodbye. 10 minutes later, my mother called. Anna, your sister is in crisis. Family helps family. Whatever you have invested, you need to liquidate it and help her. No, Mom. I don't. Carol's voice went cold. You're being incredibly selfish. Don't be surprised when people remember this. My parents threw their retirement party on a Saturday in early November. The invitation had come 3 weeks earlier, a formal card with gold lettering, celebrating Michael and Carol's upcoming retirement and new chapter at the Golden Fields. I almost didn't go. But I needed to see this, needed to watch them celebrate something they hadn't actually secured yet. The party was at their house, full of relatives and family friends. Michael stood in the living room, holding a glass of wine, beaming. Carol and I want to thank everyone for coming, he announced. After 40 years of hard work, we're finally moving into our dream home at the Golden Fields. It's been a long time coming, but good things come to those who plan wisely. Everyone clapped. Clara raised her glass, forcing a smile despite her financial troubles. I stood in the corner, holding a glass of champagne I hadn't sipped. When Michael gestured for me to say something, I stepped forward. To Mom and Dad, I said, my voice steady. May you get exactly what you've earned. Every single thing you deserve. People cheered, clinking glasses. Nobody caught the edge in my voice. Nobody noticed the slight emphasis on earned and deserve. Except Michael. He looked at me across the room, his smile faltering for just a second. Then he laughed and turned back to his guests. I smiled and disappeared into the kitchen, counting down the days. Carol called me the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. We've set a moving date, she announced happily. December 23rd. We'll have movers come early that morning, and we'll be settled in time for Christmas at our new home. December 23rd, I repeated, pulling out my calendar. That's really soon. I know. We've been waiting so long, and now it's finally happening. We're having a Christmas open house on the 26th. You'll come, won't you? See the house, celebrate with us? My hand tightened around my phone. We'll see, Mom. That's a busy time of year. You have to come, Anna. It's a family celebration. After we hung up, I stared at my calendar. December 23rd. They'd be arriving at the house that morning, expecting to move in and start their dream retirement. I had about 3 weeks to prepare. I called Rachel, my lawyer. I need to start formal proceedings for the property. The current residents need to be notified that the house is under new ownership and will not be available for occupancy. When do you want them to receive notice? Rachel asked. December 22nd. I want it official and legal. Can you handle that? Consider it done. I marked December 23rd on my calendar with a red star. Their moving day. My revenge day. The timing was perfect, almost too perfect. Christmas Eve. They'd arrive expecting joy and find locked doors instead. The Golden Fields Neighborhood Association sent out a monthly newsletter to all residents. In early December, there was a special announcement, welcome to our newest property owner. The corner lot residence at 1247 Meadowbrook Lane has been purchased by a private investment firm. We look forward to meeting our new neighbor soon. My mother forwarded me the newsletter email. Did you see this? She wrote. Someone bought the house next to where we'll be living. I hope they're nice people. Married, hopefully, with good values. I nearly laughed out loud. I texted back, hope they're good neighbors. What my parents didn't realize was that nobody was moving into that house. Not them, not anyone. I owned it through Thornhill Properties, and it was going to sit empty, at least for now. The petty part of me loved this, that my mother was literally hoping the person who'd bought their dream house was nice and married, not knowing that person was her unmarried daughter. Clara texted me separately. Did you see Mom and Dad's neighbor bought their future house? What if it's someone terrible? They'd be so disappointed. Life's full of disappointments, I texted back. They'll survive. She didn't respond. I sat back and watched the countdown. 17 days until December 23rd. 17 days until everything changed. The family meeting happened on December 10th, 13 days before their scheduled move. Michael called and said it was urgent that I come to their house that evening. I knew what was coming, but I went anyway. Everyone was there, my parents, Clara, and Marcus. They sat me down at the dining room table like I was on trial. Anna, we need to talk about your situation, Michael began. The deadline for your inheritance is approaching, and you haven't made any effort to meet the requirements. Timothy Henderson is still very interested, Carol added. He's asked about you several times. He's willing to overlook your independence. This isn't just about you anymore, Clara jumped in. This affects the whole family. If you don't get married and secure that inheritance, we all lose. I looked at each of them, seeing them clearly for the first time in years. They weren't my family. They were vultures, circling a carcass they'd created. Here's what's going to happen, Michael said, his voice hard. You're going to call Timothy tonight and accept a date. You're going to take this seriously and do whatever it takes to marry him before the deadline. Or you're out. Out of what? I asked calmly. Out of this family. No more dinners, no more holidays, no more contact. You'll be on your own. The silence stretched. Then I smiled. Is that all? I stood up, grabbing my coat. You should probably spend more time worrying about your own lives and less about mine. Trust me on that. I walked out, leaving them stunned and confused. 12 days to go. The eviction notice was perfectly legal. Rachel had drafted it with the help of a property management firm, using official letterhead from Thornhill Properties LLC. It explained that the owner of 1247 Meadowbrook Lane had decided to use the property for personal purposes, and any expected occupancy arrangements were hereby cancelled. The previous owners had sold the house free and clear. My parents had no lease, no agreement, nothing but their assumptions. On December 20th, I drove to the Golden Fields personally. The property management office was small and efficient. I handed the sealed envelope to the office manager myself. This needs to be delivered on December 22nd, I instructed. Someone will be on site that day to change the locks and post appropriate notices. The current residents of the development's guest house need to understand the corner lot is no longer available to them. The manager looked confused. I wasn't aware anyone was living in the guest house. They're not, I said. But they're expecting to move into the main house on the 23rd. They can't. This is the official notification. She read through the papers and nodded. Everything appears in order. We'll handle it. I drove home feeling lighter than I had in months. The machine was in motion. Nothing could stop it now. My phone buzzed, a text from Carol. Can't wait for you to see the house on Christmas. It's going to be perfect. I didn't reply. My phone rang at 11:30 on Christmas Eve morning. I'd been expecting the call, but it still made my heart race. It was Carol, and she was sobbing. Anna, something terrible has happened, she gasped. We got to the house this morning with all our things, and the locks are changed. There's a notice on the door saying the owner has decided to use it for personal reasons. The property management won't let us in. Our movers are here, all our furniture is in the truck, and we can't get into the house. I could hear Michael yelling in the background, his voice raw and desperate. Mom, slow down, I said, keeping my voice carefully concerned. What do you mean the locks are changed? You bought the house, right? We thought, Michael said, the money from George's estate was supposed to. She broke down crying again. Some horrible landlord bought the house before we could close the deal. Now they're refusing to honor our agreement. Anna, we have nowhere to go. All our money went into this move. We quit the lease on our rental, we paid the movers, everything. Clara's voice came through the phone, sharp and panicked. This is a scam. We need to call the police. Someone is stealing from us. I closed my eyes, savoring this moment. Who owns the house now? Did the notice say? Some company. Michael's voice came through, harsh and broken. Thornhill Properties. Whoever they are, they're destroying our lives. They arrived at my apartment 2 hours later. I heard them pounding on the door, Michael's fist hammering like he was trying to break it down. I took a breath, smoothed my hair, and opened the door. All three of them stood there, Michael, Carol, and Clara. They looked destroyed. Carol's eyes were red and swollen. Michael's face was gray. Clara looked murderous. Anna, thank God, Carol sobbed, pushing past me. You have to help us. Some terrible person bought our house and evicted us. We have all our belongings in a moving truck, and nowhere to go. Can we stay here until we figure this out? I closed the door slowly and turned to face them. Let me guess. Thornhill Properties? Michael's head snapped up. How did you know that? Because, I said, my voice steady and cold, I am Thornhill Properties. The silence was absolute. Carol stopped crying. Clara's mouth fell open. Michael just stared at me like I'd grown a second head. That's impossible, he finally whispered. I own it, I continued. I bought it 6 months ago, right after I found out about your retirement plans. The plans you were making with my inheritance money before you'd even secured it. I own 1247 Meadowbrook Lane. I am the cruel landlord. Michael couldn't finish the sentence. His entire face went white. I changed the locks this morning. I posted the eviction notice. That was me. Carol's legs seemed to give out, and she sank onto my couch. Clara just kept staring, her expression cycling between shock, rage, and disbelief. The owner who's decided to use it for personal reasons? That's me. Congratulations, you played yourselves. Michael recovered first, his face turning from white to red. This is insane. You don't have that kind of money. How could you possibly? I pulled out my phone and opened my files. Here's the deed. My name, technically the LLC's name, but I'm the sole owner. Property address, 1247 Meadowbrook Lane, the Golden Fields. Closing date, September 7th. I held the phone out to him. He snatched it, scrolling frantically through the document. Carol leaned over his shoulder, her hands shaking. Where did you get this kind of money? She breathed. I earned it, I said simply. I made an investment in a tech company, it paid off, and I used the profits to secure a mortgage. I worked for this. I didn't steal it from a sick relative or manipulate anyone's will. I earned it. The marriage clause, Michael whispered, the pieces clicking together. You were never going to get married. Why would I? I shot back. So you could fund your retirement? So Clara could get my money when I failed? I found the anonymous email about how you pressured Uncle George into adding that clause. I found your floor plans for that house, the ones where you'd already spent my inheritance before I'd even received it. Clara finally found her voice. You destroyed our parents' retirement out of spite? No, I corrected. I protected myself from people who only valued me as a bank account. You called me a sad spinster. You demanded money from me. You all made it very clear that I was worthless unless I could fund your dreams. Carol was crying again. We're family. How could you do this to family? Clara's phone rang, breaking the horrible silence. She glanced at it and stepped into my hallway to answer. I could hear her frantic whispers, yes, Marcus, they know. No, Anna bought it? I don't know. She came back in, her face pale. Marcus wants to know if we can all stay with you temporarily. He's talking about getting lawyers involved. I laughed, a short, bitter sound. Lawyers? For what? I legally purchased a property. Your parents had no contract, no lease, no legal claim to that house. They gambled on money they didn't have and lost. So what are we supposed to do? Clara demanded. Mom and Dad sold their rental, spent everything on this move. They have nowhere to go. That's not my problem, I said quietly. For months, you all made it very clear that my problems weren't your concern. When I was being pressured to marry someone I didn't love, you laughed. When I refused to give you money, you called me selfish on social media. When I needed support, you gave me ultimatums. Carol reached for my hand. Anna, please. I know we haven't been. We made mistakes, but we're family. Doesn't that mean anything? I pulled my hand away. It should have meant something to you before you tried to control my entire life. Michael stood up, his jaw tight. We'll figure this out without you. Come on, Carol. Let's go. They moved toward the door, Clara following. But I wasn't done yet. Wait, I said. They all turned. I want you to understand something. You didn't lose because I'm cruel. You lost because you underestimated me. That's on you. They left my apartment, and I sat in the silence for a long time. Part of me felt victorious. Part of me felt hollow. My phone rang the next morning, Christmas Day. It was Michael. His voice was different. Broken. Anna. Please. We need to talk. I met them at a coffee shop on December 26th. They all looked terrible, like they hadn't slept in days. Carol's eyes were puffy. Michael looked older somehow. We sat down, and nobody spoke for a long moment. Then I broke the silence. I'm not heartless, I said quietly. Despite everything, I don't want you to be homeless. Michael's head shot up, something like hope flickering in his eyes. I'm going to sell the Golden Fields house. I can't afford to keep it long-term anyway. I saw Carol's face crumple, but I continued. But I'm not going to leave you with nothing. I've purchased a 2-bedroom condo across town with money from my investments. It's modest, it's small, and it's definitely not the Golden Fields. I slid a folder across the table. You can live there for 1 year, rent-free. But there are conditions. Michael opened the folder, scanning the contract inside. You will sign a legal agreement promising to leave me alone. No more family dinners I'm obligated to attend. No more pressure about my personal life. No more contact unless I initiate it. You'll have a year to figure out your finances and find something permanent. After that year, you're on your own. Carol was crying again, but quietly now. And if we don't sign? Then you're on your own starting today, I said. It's your choice. Michael looked at the contract for a long time. Then he picked up the pen and signed. New Year's Eve came and went quietly. I declined every invitation, not that there were many. Clara sent a single text, Happy New Year, with no emojis, no warmth. I didn't respond. My parents moved into the condo I'd purchased for them on December 28th. They didn't call to thank me. The Golden Fields house sold in February to a lovely retired couple from California. I made a small profit after paying off the mortgage, enough to rebuild my savings and then some. Jane's tech company continued to grow, and my investment tripled by March. I didn't get married. I didn't date Timothy Henderson or anyone my father approved of. I lived alone in my apartment, working hard, building my own success, on my own terms. Sometimes I thought about that Christmas Eve, the phone call, the look on their faces when they realized what I'd done. I didn't regret it. Not even a little. They'd tried to control my life, to use me as a means to fund their dreams. They'd laughed at me, belittled me, and made me feel worthless. I'd simply returned the favor. On New Year's Eve, exactly 1 year after everything changed, I stood in my apartment with a glass of champagne. No family, no obligation, no one telling me I needed to be anything other than exactly who I was. I pulled up the photo on my phone, the eviction notice beside the property deed. Side by side, proof of what I'd accomplished. Then I deleted it. I didn't need proof anymore. I knew what I was capable of, and that was enough. If this revenge story and empowerment made you feel that satisfying rush of justice, please hit the like button and subscribe. Let me know in the comments if you've ever had a family member underestimate you. Thanks for watching.